The letter arrived at the ranch on a blistering July morning in 1878, and Vincent Nash held it in his calloused hands like it contained either salvation or damnation. He had answered an advertisement 3 months prior, desperate for companionship in the endless stretches of Wyoming grassland that surrounded his cattle operation outside Madisonville. And now, his mail-order bride was due to arrive at the train station in 2 days with an unexpected addition to their arrangement. Vincent read the words again, his blue eyes scanning the careful script. "Mr. Nash, I must confess something that may alter your willingness to proceed with our union. My father, who is 72 years of age and in declining health, has nowhere else to go. I cannot abandon him to a poorhouse or leave him behind in Philadelphia. If this is unacceptable, I will understand and will not board the train. Please wire your response to the telegraph office immediately. Respectfully, Josephine Carter." He stood on the porch of his ranch house, a modest but sturdy 2-story structure he had built with his own hands 5 years ago when he first claimed this land. At 31, Vincent had built a successful operation with 200 head of cattle, 3 horses, and enough saved to support a family. What he did not have was anyone to share it with, and the isolation had begun to wear on him like rope burn on raw skin. Vincent walked to the stable where his ranch hand, a weathered Mexican man named Carlos, was mucking out stalls. "I need to ride into town," Vincent said. "Can you manage things here for a few hours?" "See, of course," Carlos replied, leaning on his pitchfork. "Everything good, boss. My bride is bringing her elderly father with her. I need to send a telegram." Carlos raised his eyebrows but said nothing, just nodded with the wisdom of someone who had seen enough of life to know that families came in all configurations, and that a man who turned away a woman for caring for her father was no man at all. Vincent saddled his mare and rode the 8 miles into Madisonville, the summer heat pressing down on him like a heavy blanket. The town was small but growing, with a main street that boasted a general store, a bank, a saloon, a church, and the telegraph office. He dismounted and tied his horse to the rail, then stepped into the dim interior of the telegraph office where old Mr. Peterson sat behind the counter. "Need to send a wire to Philadelphia," Vincent said. Mr. Peterson pushed a form across the counter, and Vincent picked up the pencil, considering his words carefully. He thought about his own father, dead these 10 years from a horse accident, and how he would have wanted someone to care for him in his final years. He thought about the loneliness of his ranch, and how it might feel to have voices other than his own and Carlos's filling the rooms. He thought about Josephine Carter, whose letters had been thoughtful and kind, and how much courage it must have taken to write that confession. He wrote, "Miss Carter, your father is welcome at my table and in my home. Come as planned. Vincent Nash." Mr. Peterson counted the words and named the price. Vincent paid and walked back out into the sunlight, feeling something shift in his chest, though he could not name it. 2 days later, Vincent stood on the platform of the Madisonville train station, wearing his cleanest shirt and trousers, his dark hair still damp from the bath he had taken that morning. His hands were clean for once, scrubbed free of the dirt and grime that usually caked them. His heart hammered against his ribs as the train whistle sounded in the distance. The locomotive pulled into the station with a screech of brakes and a cloud of steam. Vincent watched as passengers began to disembark. A businessman with a leather satchel, a woman with 3 children who looked exhausted, a young couple laughing together. Then he saw her. Josephine Carter was small and slender, wearing a simple gray traveling dress that had seen better days. Her hair was dark brown, pulled back in a practical bun, and her face was pale with fatigue and anxiety. She was helping an elderly man down the steps, her arm supporting his weight as he moved with careful, shaking steps. The man was thin, his white hair sparse beneath his hat, his face lined with age and illness. Vincent stepped forward. "Miss Carter," she looked up and her eyes met his. They were green, he noticed, the color of new grass in spring. "Mr. Nash." "Yes, madam." He moved to help with her father, taking the old man's other arm. "Let me help you, sir." "Henry Carter," the old man said, his voice weak but dignified. "I appreciate your assistance, young man." "No trouble at all," Vincent said, surprised by how frail the man felt, how little he seemed to weigh. Together, he and Josephine got Henry onto the platform. "I have a wagon. Do you have luggage?" "Just 2 trunks," Josephine said. Her voice was soft and cultured, the accent of the East Coast evident. "Mr. Nash, I want to thank you for your generosity. I know this is not what you expected." Vincent looked at her, really looked at her, and saw the fear in her eyes, the exhaustion, the desperate hope. "We will talk more when we get you both home and rested. The journey from Philadelphia is long." He retrieved their trunks from the baggage car, noting how light they were, how little these 2 people possessed in the world. He loaded them into his wagon and helped Henry onto the bench seat, then offered his hand to Josephine. She took it and climbed up, settling beside her father. The ride to the ranch took an hour. Vincent pointed out landmarks along the way, the creek that ran through his property, the line of cottonwood trees that marked the northern boundary, the distant mountains that turned purple in the evening light. Josephine listened politely but said little, her arm around her father as the wagon bounced along the rough road. When they arrived at the ranch house, Carlos came out to help. Between the 2 of them, they got Henry inside and settled in the downstairs bedroom that Vincent had hastily prepared. It was meant to be a guest room, but he had never had a guest before. Josephine fussed over her father, removing his shoes, covering him with a quilt. "He needs to rest," she said to Vincent. "The journey was very hard on him." "Of course. Take whatever time you need." "I will have Carlos bring water for washing. Are you hungry?" "Starving," she admitted. "But I can prepare something if you show me the kitchen. You have been traveling for days. Sit. I will make something." He left her there and went to the kitchen, feeling awkward and strange in his own home. He had never entertained a woman before, had never had to think about hospitality beyond offering coffee to cattle buyers. He pulled out bread and cheese, sliced ham that Carlos's wife had sent over, apples from the root cellar. He arranged it all on a plate and brought it back to Josephine, who sat beside her father's bed, holding his hand. "He is asleep," she whispered. They went to the kitchen and sat at the rough wooden table. Josephine ate delicately but thoroughly, clearly famished. Vincent watched her, trying to reconcile this real person with the woman he had imagined from her letters. "You must have questions," Josephine said finally, setting down her cup of water. "A few," Vincent admitted. "Your letters mentioned you were a school teacher." "I was. I taught at a girls' academy in Philadelphia for 6 years. But my mother passed away last winter and my father's health declined rapidly after. He worked as a clerk, but he could no longer manage the work. We lost our home. My salary alone was not enough to support us both and pay for lodging. I had no other family, no one to turn to." She looked down at her hands. "When I saw your advertisement, I thought perhaps it was an answer to prayer, but I could not abandon my father." "You did right by him," Vincent said. "A person who honors their parents is someone worth knowing." Tears welled in her eyes. "You are very kind, Mr. Nash, kinder than I had any right to expect. Call me Vincent. And you should know what you are getting into here. This is a working ranch. It is isolated. The nearest neighbor is 5 miles away. The work is hard and never-ending. I am not a wealthy man, though I am doing well enough. I can provide a comfortable life, but not a luxurious one." "I do not need luxury," Josephine said. "I need safety and a home. My father needs care and dignity in his final years. If you will give us that, I will be a good wife to you. I can cook and clean and keep house. I am educated and can help with accounts if you need it. I will work hard." Vincent nodded slowly. "We should get to know each other before we marry. Take some time. There is no rush." "The law requires a waiting period anyway," Josephine said practically. 3 days in Wyoming, I believe. "You research the territory laws." "I research everything," she said, and for the first time he saw a hint of a smile on her face. It transformed her, made her less pale and frightened and more human. That night, Vincent gave Josephine the other downstairs bedroom and took his own room upstairs. He lay awake for a long time, listening to the unfamiliar sounds of other people in his house. The creak of floorboards as Josephine moved around, the distant cough of her father, the soft sound of her voice as she checked on him. The next morning, Vincent woke to the smell of coffee and bacon. He dressed quickly and came downstairs to find Josephine in the kitchen, wearing a faded blue dress and an apron, her hair in a braid down her back. She was cooking breakfast with the confident efficiency of someone who had kept a household running. "Good morning," she said. "I hope you do not mind that I took the liberty." "Mind, I am grateful." Vincent sat at the table. "How is your father?" "Weak but resting comfortably. He will need time to recover from the journey." She set a plate before him, eggs and bacon and biscuits that were actually fluffy and good. "I found your pantry well stocked. Carlos's wife, Maria, helps me with supplies. I am not much of a cook." They ate together in a silence that was not quite comfortable, but not hostile either. The silence of two strangers trying to figure out how to exist in the same space. Over the following days, they fell into a routine. Vincent went about his work on the ranch, checking cattle, mending fences, breaking a new horse. Josephine cared for her father and took over the household tasks that Vincent had been managing poorly on his own. She cleaned and organized, cooked proper meals, even started a small garden near the kitchen. In the evenings, they sat together on the porch, talking as the sun set over the grassland. Vincent told her about growing up in Missouri, coming west after his father died, building this ranch from nothing. Josephine told him about Philadelphia, the academy where she taught, the students she missed. She spoke of her father's decline, the humiliation of poverty, the fear of ending up on the streets. "I am 26 years old," she said one evening, "past the age when most women marry. I thought I would be a teacher forever, and I was content with that. But life does not always give us what we expect." "No, it does not," Vincent agreed. "I thought I would marry young, have a house full of children by now, but I was busy building this place, and there are not many women in Wyoming Territory." "You want children?" Josephine asked, her voice careful. "I do you? Very much." She looked at him in the fading light. "But I need to be honest with you, Vincent. My father does not have long to live. The doctor in Philadelphia said months, perhaps a year at most. His heart is failing. I watch him grow weaker each day, and it breaks my heart. I will be in mourning when he passes. I will grieve deeply." "I understand," Vincent said. "I lost my father. I know that pain. And you still want to marry me, knowing you will be taking on a dying man and a grieving woman." Vincent was quiet for a long moment, looking out at his land, at the cattle grazing in the distance, at the first stars appearing in the darkening sky. "We all carry burdens, Josephine. We all have grief. What matters is whether we carry those burdens alone or together. I would rather have you here, with all the complications that come with you, than go on living alone." She reached over and took his hand. It was the first time they had touched beyond the brief assistance when she arrived. Her hand was small and soft in his, so different from his own scarred and calloused palm. "Then let us marry," she said. Let us be a family for however long we have." They married 3 days later in the small church in Madisonville with Carlos and Maria as witnesses. Josephine wore a dress that Maria had altered for her, a simple cream-colored gown with lace at the collar. Vincent wore his Sunday suit, the only formal clothing he owned. The preacher, a young man named Reverend Thomas, performed the ceremony quickly and efficiently. "Do you, Vincent Nash, take this woman to be your lawfully wedded wife, to have and to hold from this day forward, for better or for worse, for richer or for poorer, in sickness and in health, until death do you part?" "I do," Vincent said, his voice steady. "Do you, Josephine Carter, take this man to be your lawfully wedded husband, to have and to hold from this day forward, for better or for worse, for richer or for poorer, in sickness and in health, until death do you part?" "I do," Josephine said softly. "Then by the power vested in me by Wyoming Territory, I pronounce you husband and wife. You may kiss your bride." Vincent leaned down and pressed a chaste kiss to Josephine's lips. It was brief and awkward, the kiss of two people who barely knew each other but who had agreed to build a life together anyway. They returned to the ranch as husband and wife. Henry Carter had been too weak to attend the ceremony, but he smiled when they told him the news. "You are a good man, Vincent Nash," he said, his voice thin as paper. "Take care of my girl." "I will, sir. You have my word." That night, Vincent and Josephine lay in his bed together for the first time, both stiff and uncertain. They had discussed this, had agreed they would take their time with the physical aspects of marriage, but the reality of sharing a bed was still strange. "I am nervous," Josephine admitted in the darkness. "So am I," Vincent said. "We can just sleep tonight. There is no rush." "Thank you." She moved closer to him, her head resting on his shoulder. "You are a kind man, Vincent." He wrapped his arm around her, feeling her warmth, her breath against his neck. It was not passion, not yet, but it was connection, and that was enough for now. The weeks that followed were a time of adjustment and learning. Vincent discovered that Josephine was practical and hardworking, that she had a quiet sense of humor and a love of books. She discovered that Vincent was patient and thoughtful, that he treated his animals with respect and his workers with fairness. They learned each other's rhythms and habits, the small intimacies of daily life, and slowly they fell in love. It happened in small moments. The way Vincent brought Josephine wildflowers from the prairie, the way she mended his shirts without being asked, the way they sat together in the evening, reading by lamplight while Henry dozed in his chair. The way Vincent helped Josephine care for her father with gentleness and respect, never complaining about the extra work or the disruption to their lives. One night in late August, as they prepared for bed, Josephine turned to Vincent with a look in her eyes that he had not seen before. "I am not nervous anymore," she said quietly. He understood. He drew her close and kissed her, really kissed her this time, and she responded with equal warmth. They came together as husband and wife in full that night, learning each other's bodies with tenderness and care, and when it was over, Josephine cried against his chest. "What is wrong?" Vincent asked, alarmed. "Nothing is wrong. I am happy. I did not think I could be this happy again." He held her close, feeling his own eyes grow wet. "Neither did I." September came and brought cooler weather. The grass began to turn golden, and Vincent prepared for the fall cattle sale. Henry's condition worsened, and he spent most of his days in bed now, too weak to sit up for long. Josephine cared for him with devotion, and Vincent helped when he could, sitting with the old man while Josephine rested, reading to him from the newspaper that came weekly from Cheyenne. "You have made my daughter happy," Henry said to Vincent one afternoon. "I can die in peace knowing she is cared for." "You are not dying yet, sir," Vincent said, though they both knew it was a lie, soon enough. But I want you to know something, son. Josephine is stronger than she looks. When her mother died, I fell apart and she held our family together. She has steel in her spine. Do not coddle her too much. Let her be strong." "I will remember that," Vincent promised. In October, Josephine told Vincent she was with child. They were sitting by the fire after supper, Henry asleep in his room, and she took Vincent's hand and placed it on her still flat stomach. "We are going to have a baby," she said. Vincent felt joy surge through him like a flood. "Truly, truly. In the spring, I think. May or June." He pulled her into his arms and held her tight. "A baby, our baby." "I wish my father could live to see his grandchild," Josephine said sadly, "but I do not think he will make it that long." She was right. Henry Carter died 3 weeks later on a cold morning in early November. He went peacefully in his sleep, and Josephine found him when she brought his breakfast. She did not cry at first, just sat beside his bed holding his cold hand, and when Vincent came in from the barn, she looked up at him with dry eyes. "He is gone," she said simply. "I am so sorry, Josephine." Then the tears came, great racking sobs that shook her whole body. Vincent held her while she wept, and he wept with her, mourning a man he had known only a few months but had come to respect. They buried Henry Carter on a hill overlooking the ranch, in a spot where wildflowers grew in summer. Reverend Thomas came out to perform the service, and Carlos and Maria attended, along with a few neighbors who had met the old man. Vincent built a wooden cross to mark the grave, and Josephine placed flowers on the fresh earth. "He was a good man," Vincent said as they stood there after everyone else had left. "He raised a remarkable daughter." "He would have liked that you said that," Josephine said, leaning against her husband. "He worried about me, about leaving me alone, but I am not alone anymore." The winter was hard, as Wyoming winters always were. Snow piled high around the ranch house, and the work was grueling, keeping the cattle fed and protected from the cold. Josephine's belly grew, and Vincent found himself overwhelmed with love and fear, desperate to protect both her and the child growing inside her. "Stop hovering," Josephine said one day in January, pushing him away as he tried to help her with a simple task. "I am pregnant, not made of glass. I just want to help." "Then help by treating me like a capable adult, not a fragile doll." But she softened the words with a kiss. "I love you for caring, Vincent, but remember what my father said. Let me be strong." He did, though it was hard. He watched as she continued to manage the household, to cook and clean and care for everything, only accepting help when she truly needed it. Her strength amazed him. In March, an early spring storm blew through, bringing high winds and sleet. One of the cows went into labor in the barn, a difficult birth that required Vincent's intervention. He worked for hours, cold and exhausted, finally managing to deliver a healthy calf. When he came into the house, covered in blood and birthing fluids, Josephine took one look at him and laughed. "What is funny?" he asked, too tired to be offended. "You look like you have been birthing that calf yourself, and soon enough you will have to help birth our child. I hope you have the same success." "I hope the baby comes easier than that calf did," Vincent said, stripping off his dirty clothes. "That was brutal." "Well, I will do my best to make it easy on you," Josephine said, still smiling. In May, when the prairie was covered in wildflowers and the grass was green again, Josephine went into labor. It happened in the middle of the night, her water breaking and waking them both. Vincent panicked, running around like a fool until Josephine grabbed his arm. "Vincent, listen to me. Ride to town and get Dr. Harrison. I will be fine until you return. This is my first baby. It will take hours. I cannot leave you alone. Then get Maria. But do it now and stop panicking." He rode to Carlos's house first, got Maria, then continued to town at a gallop that nearly killed his horse. He pounded on Dr. Harrison's door at 3 in the morning, and the elderly physician came without complaint, gathering his bag and following Vincent back to the ranch. The labor lasted all day and into the night. Vincent sat outside the bedroom door, listening to Josephine's cries, feeling helpless and terrified. Maria and the doctor were with her, but he wanted to be there too, wanted to hold her hand, wanted to do something. Finally, as the sun set on the second day, he heard a different cry, the thin, angry wail of a newborn. He jumped to his feet as the door opened and Maria emerged, smiling broadly. "You have a son, Mr. Vincent, a big, healthy son." Vincent burst into the room. Josephine lay in the bed, pale and exhausted but smiling, holding a bundle wrapped in blankets. He went to her side and looked down at his son, at the tiny red face and the small fists waving in the air. "He is perfect," Vincent whispered. "He is," Josephine agreed. "Do you want to hold him?" Vincent took his son carefully, cradling him against his chest. The baby was so small, so fragile, but his grip was strong when Vincent's finger brushed his palm. "What should we name him?" "I was thinking Henry," Josephine said softly. "For my father." Vincent looked at his wife, at the tears in her eyes, and felt his heart break and heal at the same time. "Henry Nash. I think that is perfect." They settled into life as a family of 3. Henry was a good baby, healthy and strong, and Josephine recovered quickly from the birth. Vincent found himself dividing his time between the ranch work and helping with the baby, learning how to change nappies and rock a crying infant. It was exhausting and wonderful, and he had never been happier. One evening in July, as they sat on the porch watching the sunset, Henry asleep in Josephine's arms, Vincent said, "Do you ever regret it? Coming here, marrying me?" Josephine looked at him in surprise. "Not for a single moment. Do you regret sending that telegram, telling me my father was welcome?" "No, it was the best decision I ever made." "I was so frightened," Josephine admitted. "Standing on that train platform, seeing you for the first time, I thought you would be angry that you would turn us away, but you were kind. You have always been kind." "You made my house a home," Vincent said. "You brought life to this place. I was existing before you came, but I was not living. Now I feel like every day means something." "I love you," Josephine said. "I do not think I have said it enough, but I love you with my whole heart, Vincent Nash." "And I love you, Josephine Nash. You and our son. You are everything to me." The years passed in the rhythm of ranch life. Seasons turned, cattle were born and sold, crops were planted and harvested. Henry grew from a baby to a toddler, walking and talking and getting into everything. In 1880, Josephine gave birth to a daughter they named Clara. In 1882, another son arrived, James. The house that had been so quiet when Vincent lived alone was now filled with noise and laughter and the chaos of children. Josephine proved to be as good a mother as she was a wife, patient and loving but firm when needed. She taught the children to read before they were old enough for school, using the books she had brought from Philadelphia, and others she ordered through the general store. Vincent taught them about the ranch, about caring for animals and respecting the land. In 1884, Vincent expanded his operation, buying more land and increasing his herd. The ranch was prospering, and life was good. But Josephine sometimes grew quiet and distant, and Vincent knew she was thinking of her father, missing him, wishing he could have known his grandchildren. One afternoon in the autumn of that year, Vincent took Josephine up to the hill where Henry Carter was buried. The wooden cross had weathered but still stood strong, and the wildflowers that grew there in summer had gone to seed. "I wish the children could have known him," Josephine said, standing before the grave. "They know him through your stories," Vincent said. "You talk about him often." They know he was kind and educated and loved books. They know he was brave enough to come west even when he was old and sick because he loved you that much. It does not feel like enough. It never does. But it is what we have. Vincent pulled her close. Your father gave me the most precious gift when he let you come with me. He trusted me with his daughter's life and happiness. I hope I have honored that trust. You have, Josephine said, turning to face him. More than I can say. My father died knowing I was safe and loved. That is everything he wanted for me. They stood there for a while longer, then walked back down the hill hand in hand, toward the house where their children played in the yard, their laughter carrying on the wind. In 1885, Josephine discovered she was pregnant again. At 33, she thought she was finished having children, but nature had other ideas. This pregnancy was harder than the others, leaving her tired and ill. Vincent worried constantly, hovering again despite her protests, and the children tiptoed around their mother, trying to be helpful. In April of 1886, Josephine gave birth to twin girls. The labor was long and difficult, and Dr. Harrison was concerned for a while, but both mother and babies survived. They named the twins Rose and Me, and Vincent looked at his family of 7 and wondered how he had gotten so lucky. Life settled again into routine, but it was a full and happy routine. The ranch continued to prosper, and Vincent hired more hands to help with the work. He built an addition onto the house to accommodate the growing family, adding bedrooms and a larger kitchen. Josephine planted a proper garden and kept chickens, teaching Clara how to gather eggs and care for the birds. Henry, the oldest, showed an early aptitude for ranch work, following his father everywhere and learning everything he could. Clara was quiet and bookish like her mother, always with her nose in a book. James was adventurous and fearless, constantly getting into scrapes that gave his parents gray hairs. The twins were still small but already showing distinct personalities, Rose bold and Me shy. In 1888, Josephine started a small school in their home, teaching not only her own children but also the children of neighboring ranchers. It was something she had missed, teaching, and Vincent built her a small schoolroom in the addition. She was a natural teacher, patient and creative, and the children thrived under her instruction. One evening in the summer of 1889, Vincent and Josephine sat on the porch after the children were in bed, enjoying the quiet. They were both older now, Vincent nearing 43 and Josephine 37, their hair showing threads of gray, their faces lined with years of sun and wind and laughter. "You remember when we married?" Josephine asked. "How awkward and uncertain everything was." "I remember being terrified," Vincent admitted. "I had no idea how to be a husband, much less a father to your dying father. You figured it out quickly enough." Josephine leaned her head on his shoulder. "Sometimes I think about what would have happened if you had said no. If you had told me not to come. I cannot imagine it. This life, these children, everything we have built together. It all started because you were brave enough to tell me the truth and I was smart enough to say yes. It started because you have a good heart," Josephine said. "You saw a woman and her father who needed help and you helped. Not everyone would have done that." "I got the better end of the deal," Vincent said. "You gave me everything I ever wanted and things I did not even know to want. You gave me a family, a home, a purpose beyond just surviving." They sat in comfortable silence, listening to the night sounds of the prairie, the distant howl of a coyote, the rustle of wind through the grass. Inside the house, one of the children cried out in sleep, and Josephine started to rise, but Vincent stopped her. "I will go," he said. "You rest." He went inside and found Rose standing in the hallway, rubbing her eyes. "Papa, I had a bad dream. Come here, little one." He picked her up and carried her back to bed, tucking her in beside her sleeping sister. It was just a dream. You are safe. Will you stay until I fall asleep?" "Of course." He sat on the edge of the bed, holding her small hand, and hummed a tune his own mother had sung to him long ago. Rose's eyes drifted closed, and soon her breathing deepened into sleep. Vincent sat there a while longer, looking at his daughters, then went to check on his other children. Henry slept sprawled across his bed, nearly too big for it now at 10 years old. Clara slept curled on her side, a book fallen from her hand. James slept on his stomach, his covers kicked off as always. All healthy, all safe, all his. He returned to the porch and to Josephine. "Rose had a nightmare. She is fine now." "You are a good father," Josephine said. "The children adore you. They adore you too." He sat beside her and took her hand. "Thank you, Josephine, for everything, for choosing to come here, for trusting me, for building this life with me. Thank you for letting my father be part of our family, even for that short time. Thank you for giving him dignity and respect. Thank you for being the man I needed you to be." "I love you," Vincent said, and the words still felt as powerful as the first time he had said them. "I love you too, always." The years continued to pass. Henry grew into a strong young man and began taking on more responsibility on the ranch. Clara announced she wanted to be a teacher like her mother and began helping with the younger students. James decided he wanted to be a horse trainer and spent all his time working with the animals. The twins grew from babies to little girls to young ladies. In 1895, Henry married a neighboring rancher's daughter, a spirited young woman named Sarah, and Vincent helped them build a house on the far end of his property. In 1897, Clara moved to Cheyenne to attend the teachers' college there, determined to get formal certification. James traveled to Montana to work with a renowned horse trainer, learning the trade he loved. The house grew quieter, but it was never empty. The twins were still at home, now bright and capable young women of 11. And there were grandchildren coming, first from Henry and Sarah, then more as the other children married and started their own families. Josephine's hair went fully gray, and Vincent's beard turned white. They moved slower now, tired more easily, but they were content. They had built something lasting, something good. Their love had started as a practical arrangement between strangers and had grown into something deep and enduring. In the spring of 1900, on their 22nd wedding anniversary, Vincent took Josephine back up to the hill where her father was buried. The wooden cross had been replaced with a proper stone marker that Vincent had ordered from Cheyenne, engraved with Henry Carter's name and dates, and the words "beloved father and grandfather." 22 years, Josephine said, looking at the marker. "I was only married for 4 months when my father died, but he died happy, knowing I was cared for." "He died knowing you were loved," Vincent corrected. "Because I did love you even then. I did not realize it yet, but I did." "When did you realize it?" Josephine asked, curious. Vincent thought back through the years. "I think it was the night you cried in my arms after we first made love, when you said you did not think you could be happy again. That was when I knew I loved you and would do anything to keep you happy." "For me, it was earlier," Josephine said. "It was the day you sat with my father and read him the newspaper just to keep him company. You did not have to do that, but you did it because you are kind and you cared about what mattered to me. That was when I started to love you." They stood there together, older now but still strong, still committed to each other and the life they had built. Below them, their ranch spread out across the valley, prosperous and thriving. Smoke rose from the chimneys of their house and from Henry's house beyond. Cattle grazed in the fields. The garden was green with spring planting. "We have done well," Vincent said. "We have done better than well. We have built a legacy." Josephine squeezed his hand. "Our children are good people. Our grandchildren are healthy and happy." We have a community here, people who depend on us and care about us. All of that started because you sent a telegram saying my father was welcome at your table. Best decision I ever made, Vincent said, and he meant it with every fiber of his being. They walked back down the hill together, moving more slowly than they once had, but still hand in hand, still together. At the house, their granddaughter, Henry's oldest daughter, Elizabeth, was waiting on the porch, bouncing with excitement. "Grandma, Grandpa, Mama says the new baby is coming. You need to come quickly." They hurried as much as they could to Henry's house, where Sarah was indeed in labor with their fifth child. Josephine took charge, sending the men outside and helping Maria, who was still around though older now herself, with the delivery. Vincent sat on the porch with Henry, remembering when his own son was born how terrified he had been. "You will be fine," Vincent told his son. "Your mother is with her. There is no one better." Hours later, another grandchild was born, a boy they named Vincent in honor of his grandfather. When Josephine brought the baby out to show them, Vincent looked at his namesake and felt the weight of years and love and family settle over him like a warm blanket. That night, back in their own bed, Josephine curled against Vincent like she had done for 22 years. "We are getting old," she said. "We are," Vincent agreed. "But we are getting old together, and that makes all the difference. Do you have any regrets? Anything you wish you had done differently?" Vincent thought about it seriously. "No, I have lived a good life. I have worked hard and been honest. I have loved my wife and my children. I have treated people fairly and tried to do right. What more could a man ask for?" "I have no regrets either," Josephine said. "Even the hard parts, losing my father, the difficult times, they were all worth it to have this life with you." The years continued their steady march. Vincent turned 60 in 1907, and the family threw a large celebration with neighbors coming from miles around. He looked around at the gathering, at his children and grandchildren, at his friends and community, and felt overwhelming gratitude for the life he had been given. Josephine turned 55 the same year, still beautiful to Vincent, still the woman who had stepped off that train with her dying father and changed his life forever. She still taught school, though only in the mornings now, her energy not what it once was. She still tended her garden and kept the house running smoothly. She was the heart of the family, the center around which everything revolved. In 1910, tragedy struck when James was thrown from a horse he was training and broke his back. He survived but was paralyzed from the waist down. Vincent and Josephine brought him home to the ranch, and Josephine cared for him with the same devotion she had once shown her father. James struggled with depression and anger at his new limitations, but slowly, with his mother's gentle persistence and his father's steady support, he found a new purpose. He began training horses differently, working with them from a wheelchair, developing innovative methods that soon attracted attention from ranchers across Wyoming and beyond. "You adapted," Vincent told his son one day as they watched James work with a difficult mare. "That is what the Nash family does. We adapt and overcome." "I learned from the best," James said. "You and Mother taught us that life will knock you down, but you get back up. You find a way forward." In 1912, Clara returned to Madisonville with her husband, a teacher she had met in Cheyenne, and they took over the school that Josephine had started. Josephine finally retired, spending her days with her grandchildren and great-grandchildren, reading and gardening and enjoying the peace she had earned. Rose and me both married local men and stayed in the area, adding to the growing Nash family network. The ranch had expanded significantly, with Henry now running most of the daily operations while Vincent served as advisor and elder statesman. The Nash name was respected throughout the region, known for honesty and fair dealing. In 1915, Vincent and Josephine celebrated their 37th wedding anniversary. They were 70 and 63 respectively, old but still healthy, still active in their community. They sat on the porch that evening, as they had done thousands of times before, watching the sunset paint the sky in shades of orange and purple. 37 years, Josephine marveled. Sometimes it feels like yesterday that I stepped off that train, terrified and uncertain. You were so pale, Vincent remembered, so thin, I thought you might faint right there on the platform. I nearly did. I was convinced you would take one look at me and my sick father and send us back to Philadelphia. I almost could not believe you were real, Vincent said. This beautiful, educated woman who wanted to marry a rough cowboy and live on an isolated ranch. I kept thinking you would change your mind. The only thing I regret is that we did not have more time with my father. 4 months was not enough, but it was something. He died knowing you were safe and loved. He died with dignity, surrounded by family. That is more than many people get. Because of you, Josephine said firmly. Because you had the decency and kindness to welcome an old dying man into your home. That said everything about who you are, Vincent Nash. I got 5 children, dozens of grandchildren and great-grandchildren, and 37 years with the love of my life out of that decision. I think I got the better deal. They sat in silence for a while, comfortable in each other's presence as only people who have spent decades together can be. A grandchild's laughter drifted from one of the nearby houses. A dog barked somewhere in the distance. The wind rustled through the grass, carrying the scent of hay and cattle and home. I am tired, Josephine said eventually. Tired in my bones, me too. Let us go to bed. They helped each other up, moving slowly, joints stiff with age. Inside, they prepared for bed with the practiced efficiency of long habit, then lay together in the darkness, Vincent's arm around Josephine as it had been for 37 years. I love you, Josephine whispered. Thank you for a wonderful life. I love you too, Vincent replied. Thank you for taking a chance on a lonely cowboy. They drifted off to sleep together, and that was how Henry found them in the morning. They had died in the night, peacefully in each other's arms. The doctor said it was not uncommon for long married couples to die close together, that sometimes when one heart stopped, the other simply could not bear to keep beating alone. The funeral was the largest Madisonville had ever seen. People came from across Wyoming and beyond to pay their respects to Vincent and Josephine Nash, a couple who had started as strangers bound by a practical arrangement and had built a love story that would be told for generations. They were buried side by side on the hill overlooking the ranch, next to Josephine's father, Henry Carter. 3 matching stone markers stood in a row, and in the summer, wildflowers grew thick and fragrant around them. Henry Nash, the eldest son, stood at the graves with his siblings after the crowds had gone. They had a good life, he said. A really good life. They had love, Clara added. Real, lasting love, the kind that most people only dream about. It started with kindness, James said from his wheelchair. Father could have said no when Mother wrote about grandfather, but he said yes. He said he is welcome at my table. That one act of kindness changed everything. It created all of us, Rose said, gesturing to the gathered family, the children and grandchildren and great-grandchildren who numbered in the dozens now. It created a legacy, Me finished, of love and family and doing what is right even when it is hard. They stood together for a while longer, then walked back down the hill to the ranch house where family was gathering for a meal, the kind of loud, chaotic, loving gathering that Vincent and Josephine had always enjoyed. The house was full of noise and children and laughter, exactly as it should be. Years later, When Henry's grandchildren asked about their great-grandparents, he would tell them the story. About the mail-order bride who brought her elderly father. About the cowboy who sent a telegram saying, "He is welcome at my table." About how a simple act of kindness and human decency had blossomed into one of the great love stories of the American West. Your great-grandfather used to say that we all carry burdens, and what matters is whether we carry them alone or together, Henry would tell them. He and your great-grandmother chose to carry their burdens together, and in doing so, they found joy and love and built all of this. He would gesture to the ranch, still thriving, still in the family, a testament to what Vincent and Josephine had started. The Nash Ranch continued for generations, passing from parents to children to grandchildren, each generation adding their own chapter to the story, but never forgetting the foundation. In 1950, when Wyoming celebrated its 60th year of statehood, the Nash Ranch was recognized as one of the historic homesteads that had helped build the state. A plaque was placed at the entrance to the property, telling the story of Vincent and Josephine Nash and the family they had created. People still visited the graves on the hill, especially around the anniversary of their wedding in May. Young couples would come and leave flowers, hoping that some of the Nash luck and love would rub off on them. The wildflowers still grew thick in summer, and the view of the ranch below was as beautiful as it had been when Vincent first brought Josephine there in 1878. The story became part of local folklore, told and retold, embellished and romanticized, but at its core always the same. A woman with nothing but courage and a dying father. A man with a ranch and a lonely heart. A decision made from kindness that changed both their lives forever. The telegram that Vincent had sent, carefully preserved by Josephine all those years and discovered after her death in a box of keepsakes, eventually made its way to the County Historical Society. The paper was yellowed and fragile, but the words were still clear. Miss Carter, your father is welcome at my table and in my home. Come as planned, Vincent Nash. 17 words that had started everything. 17 words that had said more about Vincent's character than 1,000 conversations could have. 17 words that had given Josephine hope and changed the trajectory of her life. In 1978, on the 100th anniversary of Vincent and Josephine's wedding, the family held a massive reunion at the ranch. Over 200 people attended, all descendants of Vincent and Josephine Nash, all carrying on the legacy of love and family and kindness that had started with a mail-order bride and a cowboy with a generous heart. They gathered on the hill by the graves, and the eldest living descendant, Henry's daughter Elizabeth, now in her 90s, told the story once more for the youngest generation to hear. Your great-great-grandmother Josephine was brave, she told the children gathered around her. She was desperate and frightened, but she was brave. She told the truth even though it could have cost her everything. And your great-great-grandfather Vincent was kind. He could have said no. Many men would have. But he saw two people who needed help and he helped them. He made room at his table and in his heart for a dying old man he had never met, and in doing so he won the love of a remarkable woman. Did they love each other right away? One child asked. No, Elizabeth said. Love takes time. They liked each other right away, I think. They respected each other. But love grew slowly, day by day, as they learned who the other really was. By the time your great-great-great-grandfather Henry Carter passed away, they loved each other deeply, and that love lasted the rest of their lives. Tell us about how they died, another child requested, and Elizabeth smiled. They died as they lived together. They went to sleep one night after 37 years of marriage, and they simply did not wake up. The doctors said they died within minutes of each other, their hearts giving out at the same time. It was as if they had made a pact not to leave the other alone, not even in death. The children were silent, taking this in, and Elizabeth looked around at her enormous family, all the people who existed because of Vincent's kindness and Josephine's courage. "The lesson," she said, "is that small acts of kindness can have enormous consequences." Vincent did not know that welcoming Henry Carter would lead to all of this. She gestured at the crowd. He just knew it was the right thing to do, and Josephine did not know that her honesty about her father would lead to a great love and a full life. She just knew she could not lie to the man she had agreed to marry. They were both just trying to do the right thing, to be good people, and look what came of it. The family stood together as the sun set over the ranch, the same view that Vincent and Josephine had watched countless times from their porch. The land spread out before them, golden in the fading light, a testament to hard work and love and family. As the last light faded and the stars began to appear, someone started singing Amazing Grace, and the voices of 200 people joined in, a hymn for the couple who had started it all, whose love story had become legend, whose kindness had echoed through the generations. On the hill, the 3 stone markers stood in the gathering darkness, silent witnesses to the legacy they represented. Henry Carter, who had died knowing his daughter was loved; Vincent Nash, who had lived a life of integrity and kindness; Josephine Nash, who had been brave enough to tell the truth and wise enough to recognize a good man when she found him. The wildflowers that grew around the graves had gone to seed for the season, but they would bloom again come spring, as they had bloomed every spring for 100 years. And the Nash family would endure, generation after generation, carrying forward the values that Vincent and Josephine had lived by: love, kindness, family, hard work, honesty, courage. These were the gifts Vincent and Josephine had given their descendants, more valuable than land or money, more lasting than stone or steel. As the family began to make their way down the hill in the darkness, Elizabeth remained behind for a moment, laying her hand on her grandmother's marker. "Thank you," she whispered. "Thank you for being brave. Thank you, Grandpa Vincent, for being kind. Thank you both for showing us what love really looks like." Then she too descended the hill, returning to the ranch house where lights blazed in every window and the sound of family echoed into the night. The house that Vincent had built with his own hands, that Josephine had transformed into a home that had sheltered generations of their family. The house that had started it all with a simple telegram and a generous heart. The Nash Ranch still stood as it had for over a century, a monument to what could be built when 2 people chose love over fear, kindness over selfishness, together over alone. And in that house, surrounded by family, the spirit of Vincent and Josephine Nash lived on, an eternal reminder that the greatest adventures begin with a single act of courage, and the greatest love stories start with an open heart and a welcoming table.